What if I told you that the mightiest angel in ancient Jewish tradition, the one said to sit at God's very side, command the armies of heaven, and even pass judgment on the souls of the dead, was once human? Not just any human, but a mortal born before the great flood, long before Abraham, Moses, or the Tower of Babel walked into history. Picture a man so pure, so attuned to the divine, that God did not let him die. Instead, he remade him. His flesh became living flame, his bones smoldering embers, his eyes blazing like torches. That man was transformed into Metatron, a being so close to the divine that some dared to call him the Lesser Yahweh. And curiously, his name isn't even Hebrew. So who was this extraordinary figure? And what hidden truths lie in the ancient text that first dared to tell his story? Welcome to Tales of Mythology, where forgotten legends, ancient terrors, and celestial battles are brought to life. If you love exploring the shadowed corners of myth, like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another epic tale. The Angel. In the mysterious realm of apocalyptic Judaism, centuries before the Common Era, the image of angels shifted. They weren't merely messengers, they were warriors, judges, scribes, and fearsome manifestations of God's will. Among them stood a figure unlike Gabriel, Michael, or Raphael, one whose origins were so shrouded in mystery that even his very name sparked debate, Metatron. His first unmistakable appearance comes in the Sefer Hekhalot, or 3 Enoch, a mystical work so intense that parts seem to have been deliberately hidden in rabbinic tradition. The story begins with Rabbi Ishmael, a high priest said to have ascended through 6 of the 7 heavenly palaces, each layer a cosmic fortress. When the Sefer Hekhalot opens, Ishmael reaches the 7th and most sacred palace. But entry is no gift, it is guarded by colossal angels able to detect intruders by scent alone, a gift elsewhere attributed only to the Messiah. Facing destruction, Ishmael cries to God for deliverance. And then he appears, the one who will speak for Ishmael, the one who dwells in the very radiance of the Shekinah, Metatron, Prince of the Divine Presence. Not only does he save Ishmael, but he reveals a truth that shakes the foundation of Jewish mysticism. I am Enoch, son of Jared. The mighty angel was once a man, taken before the flood and changed, not merely promoted, but remade. His transformation, as he describes, was absolute. My flesh became fire, my bones became coals, my eyes became flames. In earlier writings like 1 Enoch, he is a prophet granted visions of heaven. But in 3 Enoch, he becomes something else entirely, a co-ruler of heaven, Yahweh Hakatan, the little Yahweh. This was not just an elevation of status, it was a complete redefinition of what an angel could be. The concept was so dangerous that some rabbis feared it bordered on heresy. Later traditions even tell of Metatron being scourged with fiery lashes for allowing a mortal to mistake him for God. And his name? Its origins remain debated. Some believe it comes from the Latin meter, a military guide preparing the way. Others point to the Greek metathronos, beside the throne. Neither theory is certain. His name, like his essence, slips between definitions, as changeable as fire. In the world of Sefer Hekhalot, heaven is no peaceful kingdom but a realm of fire and smoke, of power and danger. Angels are not gentle guardians, they are living forces of cosmic law. Metatron sits at the very heart of this storm, a man turned into an angel, a servant turned into a ruler, a witness turned into a judge. And he gave me a throne like the throne of glory, says the text, and covered me with a curtain woven of radiance, brilliance, beauty, and mercy, like the curtain before the throne itself. What kind of mortal earns a throne beside God? What did Enoch witness that brought him not only salvation, but transformation? What truths blaze behind that curtain of light, and what dangers lurk there? When the Holy One took me, Metatron says, he lifted me upon the wings of the Shekinah to the highest heaven. I was given 70 names, each brighter than the last. I beheld the curtain and the face behind it, and my soul was burned with glory. Throne. Rabbi Ishmael stood trembling before the seventh palace, the holiest sanctuary in all of heaven, where even the boldest angels dared not approach without divine summons. His body had passed through 6 cosmic veils, each guarded by beings of unimaginable might, their voices thundering with sacred fire, their forms vast and terrifying. But the final threshold was something else entirely. It radiated an otherworldly presence, not of wrath, but of overwhelming holiness. As he approached, the angelic guardians, sensing his mortal scent, moved to destroy him. They did not speak, they knew flesh did not belong here. Rabbi Ishmael cried out to the Most High, and it was then that Metatron appeared again, not merely to protect, but to declare his righteousness. He is worthy, the angel said, and with that pronouncement, the celestial gates parted. Rabbi Ishmael entered the throne room of the divine. Not even the boldest prophet of Israel had ventured so far into the heart of the unseen. Inside the seventh palace, the sight defied language. The heavenly hosts surrounded the throne, their forms brilliant and abstract, reciting the eternal song, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Adonai Tzvaoti, Melo Haaretz Kavodo, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, the whole earth is filled with his glory. The angels did not move of their own will, but only by divine command. Their existence was praise. But here, within the holiest chamber, Rabbi Ishmael was invited to join in that song, to echo the hymn that sustains all of creation. Standing by the throne itself, Metatron began to reveal the secrets of heaven. The first was the transformation, the great mystery of his own becoming. When the Holy One, blessed be he, took me, Metatron said, my flesh became flame, my sinews became fire, my bones became coals, and my eyes lightning. This was not poetry, it was a description of the unmaking of a human body and the forging of something new. A man was not merely lifted into heaven, he was unmade and reforged in fire into an angel. The throne, the very seat upon which God rules all things, was set apart from the rest of the seventh palace by a vast curtain, the Pargod. Upon this veil was woven the entire history of the cosmos, not told, not written, but embroidered. Rabbi Ishmael saw it, he saw everything, from the creation of Adam to the coming of the Messiah, every rise and fall, every divine judgment, every hidden sin, and every act of mercy. It shimmered in golden thread, not as prophecy, but as certainty. This was not a prediction, it was the plan, visible only to those permitted to look upon the face of the divine without perishing. Metatron explained that this vision was not given lightly, it scorched the soul. Only those made pure by fire or protected by one such as he could endure it. Rabbi Ishmael, carried by this strange and terrifying guide, saw the shape of history itself burn in his eyes. It would never leave him. But the throne was not only a seat of judgment, it was the place where divine authority radiated into the cosmos. Metatron, seated beside it, did something unthinkable, he sat. In Jewish mystical thought, angels do not sit. To sit in the presence of God is to reign, to rest in authority. Yet Metatron was granted this impossible honor. He made for me a throne like the throne of glory and spread over me a curtain of splendor, the text says, 3 Enoch 10:1. This was not metaphor, it was metaphysical elevation. Only two were permitted such rest, the Almighty himself and the angel who had once been Enoch. As 3 Enoch 10:1 records, Metatron became not merely a servant, but a co-regent, the lesser Yahweh, the youth, the prince of the divine presence. It was this elevation that would cause controversy for centuries, sparking theological firestorms and accusations of duality within the Godhead, blasphemies that Jewish tradition would struggle to contain. It is no surprise, then, that rabbinic literature largely avoids Enoch. His very name is like dynamite. The Babylonian Talmud, while deeply mystical, offers only fragments of his story, and what survives is often laced with caution. The name Metatron is spoken with ambiguity. He is punished in later stories for allowing his throne to be seen. In one tale, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, one of the 4 who entered the heavenly garden, sees Metatron seated and declares, "There are 2 powers in heaven." For this blasphemy, Metatron is lashed with fiery rods in 3 Enoch. This is carried out not by Gabriel, but by Anaphiel, another dreadful prince of the highest order. Metatron, though powerful beyond reckoning, is not above correction. He is made to stand again, a reminder that no being, no matter how glorified, may sit as God sits unless permitted. Yet, even in chastisement, Metatron remains the most radiant among the celestial hosts. His garments shine brighter than the sun, he bears 70 names. He alone may enter the presence of God without perishing. He serves not only as judge and intercessor, but as the scribe of heaven, the one who records every thought, every deed, every soul's path. Yet he is still called the youth, not in jest, but as a mark of his humanity. For all his divine fire, he is still Enoch. He remembers what it was to be mortal. This is why he is entrusted with the souls of children, why he weeps when the righteous suffer, why he leads the soul of Moses to its final rest, mourning the prophet who died outside the promised land. As the vision continued, Rabbi Ishmael beheld the river of fire from which the angels emerge, purified. He saw the prisons where fallen angels, those who failed in their duties, were chained. He witnessed the storehouses of fire and ice, the letters with which God created the world, and the ancestors of Israel praying day and night for their descendants. He saw not only heaven's glory, but its burdens. He came to understand the cost of divine service. The eternal song was not only beauty, it was also weight, glory that crushed the soul. I looked, he says in the text, and my spirit melted within me, 3 Enoch 45:3. And he revealed to me the secrets of the heavens and the histories of the generations, from Adam to the end of days. And I beheld the hand that would rise again when the Messiah is revealed, and my eyes burned with knowledge, and my heart could not bear the weight of what I had seen. The secrets. Beyond the throne and its dazzling glory, Metatron unveiled mysteries hidden even from the highest angels. There, cloaked behind the pargod, the sacred curtain that veils the divine face, were not just revelations of history, but of structure, cosmic order carved into fire. Rabbi Ishmael, though still trembling from the weight of all he had seen, was shown the mechanisms by which heaven governed the universe. The curtain, described in 3 Enoch 45:1, was embroidered with divine letters, each one pulsating with life and power. These letters were not ornamental, they were the language of reality itself. Each a command, each a vessel of energy that sustained the heavens, the earth, and everything in between. The alphabet of creation, Hebrew in its most primordial form, radiated with the breath of the divine. Metatron pointed to each symbol, naming its essence, its effect, its place in the grand scheme. It was not enough to read these signs, one had to know them in their spiritual truth. Ishmael understood at last that knowledge here was not intellectual, it was ontological. To see was to become. The angel then led Ishmael to the storehouses, vast cosmic repositories holding the opposites of creation. There, beneath layers of metaphysical protection, were the elemental sources: fire, water, wind, ice, even the primal darkness that existed before light was summoned. These were not mere concepts or metaphors, they existed as spiritual realities, guarded by appointed angels whose task was to maintain the balance of the world. As recorded in 3 Enoch 48c 1-3, these angels were terrible to behold, beings formed not for beauty or praise, but for containment. They did not speak unless commanded, they knew only duty. Within these halls, Ishmael saw the reservoirs of judgment and mercy, the tension between punishment and grace. These forces, too, were guarded, sealed with divine names, only opened at appointed times, such as in moments of great collective sin or divine compassion. These were the engines of history, powered by justice and held in check by the will of the Eternal. It became clear history was not a straight line, but a tension between what must happen and what could be averted. The journey continued deeper still to the places where the souls of the dead resided. Metatron revealed the chambers of the righteous, souls bathed in divine light, singing praises, resting in peace, preparing for resurrection. These were the ones who had endured the trials of life with faith and integrity. Their place was secure, their reward, spiritual proximity to the Shekinah. But nearby, in contrast so sharp it seared the soul, were the souls of the middling, those neither righteous nor wicked. These waited in painful liminality, purified through spiritual fire, not out of cruelty, but preparation. Lastly, the wicked, their chambers were dark, locked behind layers of flame and smoke, cut off from the light. Ishmael could not bear to look long. As Metatron explained, even in punishment, there was structure, purpose, and sometimes even release. Not all were doomed forever, only those who had defied the divine order itself remained. The rest were judged, weighed, and either restored or destroyed. This system of judgment was not arbitrary, it was built into the very substance of the cosmos. In one of the most profound revelations, Metatron brought Ishmael to behold the angelic scribes. These beings recorded every action, thought, and word spoken by humans, not metaphorically, but in real celestial record books, scrolls of fire inked in light. As 3 Enoch 18:3 notes, each soul had a book, and each book a watcher. These scribes did not judge, they only recorded. Judgment would come, but not from them. Yet their presence was a reminder that nothing was forgotten. Every whisper, every deed done in secret, was known. The scale of accountability was immense, and the heavens were not indifferent. Here, Metatron's role as scribe and prince became clearer. He stood at the junction of revelation and memory, the one who bore witness both to humanity's striving and its failure. He was not merely a servant of God, he was the cosmic archivist. Ishmael, in beholding these scrolls, understood that his own life, too, was inscribed there, every hesitation, every doubt, every act of faith, all of it. As the tour deepened, the heavens seemed less like a place of reward and more like a complex organism, every part connected, every function deliberate. Even the stars and planets had souls, presences assigned to guide their courses and record their influences upon the earth. Nothing was accidental. As described in 3 Enoch 16:1, each celestial body had an angelic governor, and their harmonies composed the music of the spheres. Metatron brought Ishmael into this orchestra of movement, sound, and will. He showed him the names of stars, their meanings, and the angels who carried their light across the cosmos. Ishmael realized that even time itself was guided. There were angels of days, angels of seasons, of judgment hours, and hours of mercy. These moments were not counted by clocks, but by purpose. In each rotation of the heavens, humanity's story advanced, unseen, but not unwitnessed. It was here that the unity of all things became evident: heaven, earth, soul, time, all bound by the divine word, all watched by flame-eyed beings whose purpose was written before the first man breathed. He opened before me the scroll of days, and I saw written therein the paths of all who walked the earth, from the breath of the first man to the silence of the last. All was written, and the ink still flowed, Metatron said. These are the years of mercy, the days of wrath, the hours of return. Blessed is he who turns before the seal is set. Metatron. Among the myriad visions revealed to Rabbi Ishmael, none was more disturbing than the tale of the great chastisement, the moment when even Metatron, the exalted prince of the divine presence, was humbled before the host of heaven. This event, recorded both in 3 Enoch and echoed subtly in rabbinic texts such as the Babylonian Talmud Haggadah 15a, reveals the fragile balance between celestial authority and divine exclusivity. Metatron, despite his fiery transformation and seat beside the throne, had crossed an invisible threshold. In a realm where even angels fear to presume, the perception of equality with the Most High was a line not to be approached, much less crossed. When Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, one of the 4 mystics who dared to enter the Pards, the heavenly garden, beheld Metatron seated, he cried, "There are 2 powers in heaven." This utterance, born from a glimpse of unspeakable mystery, would echo through theological history, unleashing the fury of heaven and the anxiety of the rabbis who later condemned the vision. The punishment was swift and violent. According to 3 Enoch 16:5, Metatron was stripped of his privilege to sit and was scourged with the pulsar denura, the lashes of fire. This act of cosmic correction was not delivered by just any angel, but by Anaphiel, a being whose very name struck terror into the ranks of the cherubim. The severity of the judgment illustrates the paradox Metatron embodied. Though he was transformed by divine fire, crowned with 70 names, and entrusted with duties beyond even the archangels, he remained a created being. To stand near the throne is not the same as to share its essence. And so, he was made to stand like all others, a sign that only the one above all could reign seated. This act of humiliation, encoded in mystical texts, served as a theological safeguard. It was a warning to later generations: divine proximity does not mean divine parity. The rabbis, especially in the post-temple period, were deeply unsettled by figures like Metatron. In the aftermath of growing sectarian movements and the rise of Christianity, which they perceived as dangerously close to dualism, asserting the singularity of God became an existential necessity. The story of Metatron's humbling was preserved and retold as both a correction and a caution. His very silence during Elisha's heretical declaration is seen as his failure. He should have spoken, he should have clarified. Instead, he allowed the moment to stand unanswered, and in that silence, error was born. That mistake, perhaps more than any pride or presumption, was the reason for his lashing. In mystical terms, it wasn't just a punishment, it was a purification. Metatron remained exalted, but now restrained. He became a living symbol of the line between divine authority and delegated power, a threshold that even the greatest of angels could not cross without consequence. Yet the consequences of that moment extended far beyond the individual. In rabbinic memory, Elisha ben Abuya was forever marked by that vision, branded Acre, the other. He became a tragic emblem of mystical excess, one who sought the secret things and paid the price. His story, tangled with that of Metatron, revealed the risks of unauthorized knowledge. The Pards was no paradise, it was a labyrinth of flame, mirrors, and unspeakable truths. Only one among the four who entered would emerge whole, the rest were broken, one dead, one mad, one lost. These accounts, both in 3 Enoch and rabbinic sources, serve not merely as mystical narratives, but as theological boundaries. They mark the edges of what may be known and the cost of stepping beyond. The humbling of Metatron thus becomes the humbling of ambition itself. No matter how high one ascends, there remains a mystery beyond reach, veiled not for lack of vision, but for preservation of holiness. Still, Metatron was not cast down, unlike fallen angels of older myths. He remained within the divine court, his authority diminished but not erased. His role as scribe, as guardian of the righteous, and as intercessor endured. But the image of him seated beside the throne faded. In its place rose the corrected image, Metatron, still brilliant but standing, the heavenly youth, crowned with fire, but silent before the veil. This correction did not erase his importance, it redefined it. The angel who had once been a man became a mirror for humanity's spiritual ambition. He was the peak to which one might aspire and the warning of how easily that peak becomes a precipice. In mystical reflection, Metatron is the flame that burns too close to the source, revered, yes, feared, absolutely, but above all, contained. His story became a cornerstone for those who sought the divine through mysticism. It was not merely about visions, it was about limits and knowing when to bow in the presence of the infinite. And the Holy One said, because he allowed the vision to stand without protest, he shall no longer sit. And the angel Anaphiel struck him with the fire of judgment, and he stood trembling. And a voice echoed through the halls of glory, there is none like me in the heights of heaven. I am one. I share my throne with none. Angelic hosts. Beyond the veil of the 7th palace, where only the rarest visionaries are permitted, Rabbi Ishmael beheld the unending array of angelic hierarchies, each class, each function, each name speaking to the unimaginable complexity of divine administration. These were not vague spirits floating in luminous abstraction, they were ordered, ranked, and assigned duties so precise that no human comparison could truly capture their purpose. Metatron, now restored to his role as Ishmael's guide, led him through this immense celestial structure, a system layered with power and responsibility. In 3 Enoch 17:1-3, the text describes entire categories of angels, some singing unceasingly, others attending the throne, still others guarding the mystical gates of heaven. Their voices did not clash, but merged into a singular harmony. Their existence was not independent, it was functionally embedded into the will of the Creator. They were command and fulfillment, intention and execution, without hesitation or confusion. Among the angelic classes, some names emerged with singular intensity. Anaphiel, whose fury had lashed Metatron, appeared again in a role not of punishment, but of intercession. His presence, enormous and terrifying, radiated authority, yet remained subservient to the divine command. There were others, Suriel, Puriel, Uzziel, Raziel, each charged with overseeing different aspects of divine judgment or revelation. The angelic orders were not limited to praise or wrath, they maintained the workings of nature, the stability of time, the transmission of prophecy, and the delivery of divine decrees. 3 Enoch 24:1 refers to these beings in terms so exalted and redundant that modern readers may find the descriptions overwhelming. Yet this repetition serves a purpose. Gershom Scholem, in his study of Jewish mysticism, called it piling glory upon glory, a technique to convey the incommunicable magnitude of these beings through linguistic excess. It is not just theology, it is all forced into language, straining under its own weight. Rabbi Ishmael was shown not only their form, but their motion. The heavens moved with their steps. Their wings did not flap like birds, but shimmered with divine energy. Some had multiple faces, others were formed of wheels and flame, like those Ezekiel had glimpsed by the river Chebar. But unlike the prophetic vision, this journey was interactive. Metatron explained the significance of each form. A face of a lion meant righteous dominion, the ox divine patience, the eagle prophetic insight, the man compassion. These were not merely symbols, they were qualities embedded into celestial architecture. Their stations were fixed by the divine alphabet, the holy letters inscribed in fire that determined all positions, functions, and forms. Nothing was arbitrary. Ishmael, though struck, began to grasp that heaven was not a place of unstructured glory, but a sacred machine. The divine bureaucracy, an idea that may seem irreverent today, was in fact the essence of order. Holiness in this realm was not chaos, it was absolute structure. Even prayer, that most human of expressions, passed through ranks of angels before reaching the divine presence. Metatron revealed that each prayer was examined by appointed angels, weighed, and either elevated or dismissed. 3 Enoch 29:3 explains that some angels bind prayer in crowns of light before placing it before the throne. Others seal the unworthy words, returning them as echoes to the petitioner's own soul. This process was not judgment in the moral sense, it was spiritual filtration. The angels did not punish, they refined. What reached the throne was only what could endure the weight of divine scrutiny. Metatron, as the Prince of the Presence, oversaw this transmission. His name was inscribed upon the heavenly altar itself, and he acted as a conduit between humanity's longing and the divine ear. The image is clear, no plea is ever lost, but not all are granted audience. Each utterance is remembered, but only the purest rise in flame rather than fade into mist. Rabbi Ishmael was next brought to the chambers where angels prepared to perform acts of divine intervention on earth. These were not messengers in the poetic sense, they were executors of fate. One would descend to guard a prophet, another to destroy a city, one to inspire repentance in a dying king, another to retrieve a soul at its final breath. They were not emotional beings, but extensions of divine justice and mercy. They did not choose, they acted. Yet, even within their silence, there was sorrow and reverence. Metatron spoke of the angel Dumiel, Prince of the Dead, who guides souls to Sheol and holds their silence without sound, without motion, for those who departed unready. 3 Enoch 41:12. These moments reminded Ishmael, and through him the reader, that heaven is not merely judgment, but an ecology of spiritual necessity, where all things move with intention, even grief. Finally, Metatron opened to Ishmael the secret of the 70 nations and their angelic patrons. According to 3 Enoch 31:3, every nation on earth is assigned a celestial guardian, each one tasked with representing their people before God. These angels are not mere observers, they are intercessors, sometimes accusers, and occasionally protectors. The fate of nations is discussed in the celestial court, where their deeds are recited and their futures weighed. Only Israel, says the text, is not given over to an angelic intermediary, but remains under the direct protection of the divine. This idea reflects a deep mystical conviction that the chosen people, despite suffering and dispersion, are always watched, always accounted for. It is this oversight that gives Jewish mysticism its unique view of history, not as a random sequence of events, but as a celestial negotiation. Kingdoms rise and fall not merely by swords and treaties, but by decrees spoken in fire above. And I beheld the angelic princes of the nations gathered before the throne, and each bore a scroll written in the language of his people. And they read aloud the deeds of kings, the blood of the innocent, the cry of the oppressed. And one voice called out, "Let justice descend." And it was so. End of all. Rabbi Ishmael had seen what few could even dream to imagine: the divine palace, the layered heavens, the flaming angelic hosts, the heavenly scrolls. Yet his ascent was not over. There remained one final mystery, one so vast, so unbearable in its implications, that the human soul could scarcely contain it. Metatron, the fiery prince of the presence, took him beyond the angelic spheres to a place no being, not even the seraphim, approached without dread. There, in stillness deeper than time itself, hung the Pargod, the divine curtain that shielded even the highest heaven from the full glory of the Most High. But this was not the same veil Rabbi Ishmael had seen embroidered with history. This was the ultimate veil, behind which the face of God remained forever hidden. The curtain was not cloth, but radiance, a woven tapestry of light, judgment, mercy, and divine names that pulsated with power. No created eye could withstand it. As 3 Enoch 45:5 records, upon this veil was inscribed not only the deeds of men, but the architecture of fate and the secret of the end. Through Metatron's guidance, Ishmael beheld what no prophet before him had dared to see: the right hand of God, hidden behind his back since the destruction of the temple. It had not been raised in justice nor stretched forth in redemption. And upon generation, according to 3 Enoch 48:1, that hand, symbol of divine action in the world, would not be revealed again until the time of final judgment, the moment when all creation would be measured and the righteous vindicated. Ishmael saw the hand, veiled in a brilliance so fierce that even Metatron could not stand before it uncovered. It radiated promise and threat, justice and renewal. The rabbis would later interpret this image as deeply messianic: the hand that had once parted the sea, written the law, and shielded Moses in the cleft of the rock would rise once more to restore divine order upon the earth. Yet here, it remained motionless, waiting for the fullness of time to summon its movement. This stillness was not idleness, it was patience, drawn out over eons, held in suspense until the last page of history could be turned. From that place beyond the veil, Rabbi Ishmael was shown visions not of individual souls, but of the cosmos itself. He saw the rise and fall of kingdoms, the paths of stars, the cries of generations locked in suffering, and the moments of grace that glimmered like sparks in a dark sea. As 3 Enoch 47:2 reveals, all that was hidden shall be made visible, and the scales shall be balanced before the eyes of all creation. Ishmael understood now that the heavenly court did not merely await the end, it prepared for it. Every act of evil recorded, every silent virtue cherished, all ready to be unveiled when the curtain would finally fall and the hand would rise. In the silence that followed this revelation, Rabbi Ishmael asked Metatron if he, too, would see that day. The angel's answer was not clear, for even in heaven, some knowledge remains sealed. Yet Metatron spoke of the souls of the righteous, who would rise with new garments of light, and the wicked, who would fade like shadows before the brightness of the divine throne. He showed Ishmael the place where the books of the righteous were kept, not scrolls of ink and parchment, but radiant volumes bound by will and memory. Each soul was a page, each life a verse. These were the true scriptures, unread by men, understood only by the watchers of heaven. When the time came, these books would open, not as judgment, but as testimony. There would be no need to accuse, each soul would see itself as it truly was, and from that recognition, joy or despair would arise. This final scene, more than any, overwhelmed Ishmael, and even Metatron grew solemn in its telling. As his journey drew to its silent end, Rabbi Ishmael was led back from the inner reaches of the palace. The glory did not fade, but receded like the tide, leaving behind fire instead of water. His soul was scorched with knowledge he could not speak of. Much that he had seen, and some visions, would remain sealed in his heart until death. But he returned changed, marked by the touch of the eternal, bearing witness to mysteries older than the stars. His testimony would survive in fragments, encoded in the enigmatic text of 3 Enoch, preserved by mystics, debated by scholars, feared by rabbis. Metatron returned to his station, standing eternally before the divine throne, neither man nor God, but something in between. The burning memory of humanity's highest transformation and the warning of its limits, he remained the prince of the divine presence, guardian of the heavenly archive, and the silent witness to the future that even angels cannot hasten. And the curtain was drawn back, and I beheld the right hand of the Holy One, hidden since the day the temple fell. And it shimmered with power withheld, fire unmoved, waiting for the hour appointed. And Metatron said, when that hand rises again, the heavens shall tremble, and the souls shall sing or be silenced.